Hello and welcome to another episode in our series on reptiles, brought to you by myself, Mark Perpetua from Reptile Encounters, in conjunction with Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue. In today's episode, we want to talk a little bit about crocodilians. Crocodilians are our living reptilian link to a line of reptiles known as the archosaurs, which included the dinosaurs. And even though dinosaurs died out over 65 million years ago, them, along with today's living crocodilians, make up the most advanced group of reptiles compared to all the others. And we can talk about that again a little bit later. What I have in front of me right now is a skull from a large American alligator. This alligator was probably about 8 to 10 feet long, putting him anywhere between 200 to 300 pounds in weight. The American alligator is native to the southeastern United States. You can find them from the very southern part of Virginia, down along the Atlantic coast and throughout all of Florida, the Gulf states, through Louisiana, into eastern Texas, and believe it or not, they go far enough north that there are small populations of alligators living in Oklahoma. In the extreme southern part of Florida, their range overlaps in the Everglades with the American crocodile. And that is where the age-old question comes from: how do you tell an alligator from a crocodile? And really, it only applies to that part of the world where the American crocodile of the South overlaps with the populations of the American alligators that live farther north. If you ever did run into a crocodilian in the Everglades, one of the easiest ways to tell the alligators from crocodiles is the shape of the snout. Alligators have these massively broad snouts. And when the mouth is closed, noticed on the skull, all the teeth of the lower jaw fit into notches on the upper jaw. In fact, if I separate the top from the bottom, there's a big pit right here that the fourth tooth on the bottom jaw fits into to hide it from view. In fact, that fourth tooth on the bottom jaw is the biggest tooth on a crocodile's lower jaw, and they have a much narrower snout. So that tooth has to fit outside like a set of tusks showing up. So crocodilians do appear a little bit more toothy when you take a look at them. And speaking of those teeth, I mean, this is a big alligator. He's got some big teeth. But the truth is, alligators, crocodiles, their relatives start out really small, and of course with a set of baby teeth. But unlike us, who lose our baby teeth to only grow in one set of adult teeth, crocodilians grow from 800 to 10 or 12 feet long, and they're replacing teeth throughout their entire lifetime. They might go through about 3,000 teeth in their lifetime. In fact, when this poor alligator was killed by a hunter in Florida, 2 of the teeth are missing, but you can see replacement teeth pushing through already in the bottom. But crocodilians are definitely large, apex, aquatic predators, and their bodies are built perfectly for that. And right now, though, we want to take a look at a little live alligator that I brought. We'll take a look at why they're such incredible success stories in nature, but also talk a little bit about their life cycle. I mean, it's hard to believe an animal that starts out so small can get so big. In fact, this alligator is already about 1.5 years old. They start out at only 8 inches in length, fit right in the palm of your hand. And as cute as a baby alligator may look to us humans, to the other animals in their environment, they often look like a tasty snack. The life is a very dangerous place for a baby alligator just starting out. They have to worry about snapping turtles, largemouth bass, and other fish like gar. Birds of prey and even water snakes will eat small baby alligators. But lucky for them, they got a really protective mother. Motherly protection is not a big thing in the reptile class, but with the crocodilians, their mothers will watch over their nest and then listen for their babies. And they instinctively know, although they never met her before, to start calling for her help as they start hatching out of the eggs. A baby alligator will make a cry. It sounds a little bit like this. And that cry alerts the mother to the fact that the babies are ready to go out and meet their new environment, actually living free out in the world. Of course, mother alligators can't feed their babies, and she might have about 40 to look over, so they go out looking for food on their own. At this size, tadpoles, minnows, insects, small frogs are all the kinds of things that a baby alligator might feed on. And when they're out there looking for food, they still are alert for danger. And if they see danger first, that cry will hopefully get mom's attention to get there as soon as possible. Of course, if they don't see danger, they want to hope that the danger doesn't see them. So if you notice the alligator's coloration, they're black with yellow stripes when they're young. In fact, when this guy was first hatched, the yellow was much, much brighter, and it creates a really nice camouflage for the weeds and the environment of the southern swamps where they live. So why the cartoonist decided to make alligators green is beyond me. Even their belly serves an important role. This guy's a little gray right now because of the cooler temperatures that we're working in, but often that belly is bright white, and that's what we call counter shading. In the swamp, he would have the dark back in contrast with or blending in with the dark bottom of the swamp. So anything looking from above, like a bird, would have a hard time finding him. But when they're swimming up over the top of fish, turtles, and maybe water snakes, that blends in with the bright sunlight above, giving him a camouflage from a different angle. You see that on fish, you see that on many types of birds that are perching over your head, and it's just part of their camouflage, believe it or not. But those baby alligators that survive the troubles of life when they're little, and not many of them are, maybe 1 in every 12 to 24 baby alligators are actually going to survive the early parts of their life. They can grow quickly. An alligator will put about 1 foot a year on until it's about 4 or 5 years old, and by that time it's going to be nearly 4 or 5 feet long. So let me go ahead and put this little guy back, and we got a little bit larger alligator we want to share with you. All right, here's a 4-year-old alligator. He's not quite 4 feet long yet, but he's a little bit bigger, a little bit more impressive, and I'll be able to show you more of the features that make alligators so successful as aquatic predators. First of all, really streamlined bodies, of course, right? Most people are very familiar with the fact that alligators can use that body shape to move through the water very quickly. But when an alligator's swimming, his legs kind of get in the way. They're great for getting out of the swamp to bask in the sun, getting back into the swamp to either cool off or go on the hunt. When an alligator needs to move quickly, however, they fold those legs right up against the side of their body, and they're broad, flat, what they're going to use for swimming. I mean, look how thick that base is. That's all muscle. So imagine how powerful that tail can be. But of course, the business end of the alligator is right up here in the front. They have, as we saw with the skull, an incredible set of jaws. Now, alligators have these tactile or touch sensing nerve endings and all these little black dots around their head. They often hunt at night, and although they are really good with their vision in a nocturnal setting, they also hunt in dark water, poking their head under logs, in weeds, and sometimes they'll snap at things just because of the touch. So yeah, this is one way to get him to open his mouth. He's not mad at me. It's just a feeding reflex. Speaking of reflexes, the inside of the mouth also has a reflex. And of course, it's just the opposite. It has a lot to do with the position of his eyes. While his eyes sit way back in the back of his head, he opens that big mouth when he's in pursuit of prey. He has no idea when it's in his mouth. So alligators will open their mouth at the last second, a burst of energy with that big, strong tail, and then when they lose sight of their food, they just wait till it makes contact. I'll try that again. This time I'll be a little bit more quiet. And if we listen, we might even hear a popping sound as his jaws come together. Now, that wasn't as good. But anyway, yeah, we got a chance to see that reflex. While his mouth is open, there's a few other things that are important. Using a burst of energy, open your mouth to go grab food, you do have to worry about getting a mouthful of water. So take a look at his tongue. Right now, it's pushed up against the back of his throat, and he's sealing off his throat with what's called a palatal valve. It's just a big extra flap on the back of his tongue to keep the water out. The rest of his tongue is a great muscle for swallowing, but no matter how much I wiggle it, he's not going to stick it out. He can't, and it's probably because he's got a mouthful of 80 sharply pointed teeth. Other things that help him in the water: nictitating membranes, an extra eyelid that goes across the eyeball sideways. It's like a goggle, so it protects his eye from the mud, sticks, leaves, and debris in the swamp. He's got ears, but they're covered by flaps of skin. Alligators have great hearing, even though their ears are hard to see. But when they dive underwater, those ears can be pushed shut by water pressure, sealing the water out. Speaking of water out, take a look at his nostrils. Right now, they're wide open for breathing. But if I give a little tickle, he might close them, he might not. But when he dives underwater, the last thing he wants is water getting up his nose. So he's got muscles right around his nostrils that pinch shut. Built-in earplugs, goggles, and even nose plugs, which is why alligators are the apex predators of the swamp. Now, you might have heard him making some noise as we go along here. He's still in that intermediate stage between the little alligator and growing into be a bigger alligator. He's a male. We call them bulls. A bull alligator, as we show you with the skull, is going to be about 10, 12 feet, may weigh as much as 500 pounds. Occasionally, they get larger. It is said that the record size for an American alligator was 19 feet, but there's still people that are skeptical because, well, we rarely see them that big today. A 12-footer would be a giant. Anyway, as he's transitioning, going through his adolescent stage, he still cries every now and then. It sounds more like a croak as he gets bigger, his voice is getting deeper, but eventually, that's going to turn into a bellow. It's a deep bellow that echoes through the swamps in the springtime. What they're doing is telling other males they don't want to compete, and it scares them off. The bigger the alligator, the deeper the bellow, the little alligators know to stay away. And it also is very attractive to the females. It calls them in for the mating season. But yeah, speaking of that bellow, alligators are territorial, and don't let them fool you. Alligators will eat their own kind. And a little alligator like this gets too close to a big alligator like the one that produced this skull, it's very possible that the big male might eat some of the smaller ones. And it's just over competition. Alligators reproduce at a very successful rate. They can produce 40 eggs at a time, and there are the great protection that the mother gives them, plus the laws that people have given them in the past. Alligator populations are doing great today, and there's only so much food available, especially because a big guy like this may live 80 or more years. Some people believe they may even live to be over 100, but we're still looking for the right data to prove that. Either way, there's only so much food in the swamp, and the big alligators don't like to share with the little alligators. And that's why we do have legal hunting seasons. I, for one, love alligators. I love working with them and teaching with them. I probably could never hunt one myself, but I'm not opposed to the fact that they're doing that in order to keep control of the alligator populations because they are doing so well in heavily lived areas, especially places like South Florida, where a lot of people live now. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of room for them. And as though I could never probably shoot one, that's where this alligator skull came from. This came from an alligator hunt during a legal alligator season, and that's why they were able to legally sell it to me. But for us, it doubles as an educational tool. So I hope you liked everything we had to share with you about alligators today, including a little bit on their cousins, the crocodiles. Hope you enjoyed this video. As usual, add some comments. Let us know how you like it, and also let us know if there's anything you want us to add in the future. Thank you so much, and don't forget to enjoy the natural wonders around you.